The campaign trail we go in the war of words between Pope Francis and Donald Trump.
A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not Christian.
For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful. I'm proud to be a Christian, and as president, I will not allow Christianity to be consistently attacked and weakened, unlike what is happening now with our current president.
This back and forth coming as GOP candidates look to secure key evangelical votes ahead of the South Carolina primary. I want to bring in Pastor Robert Jeffress, also a Fox News contributor. Pastor, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Maria.
What's your reaction to the Pope's comments and Trump's response?
Well, look, you have to hand it to the Pope. He's been able to pull off what nobody else on earth could do, and that is turn Donald Trump into a martyr. I mean, I think this is only going to help Trump. I believe, Maria, the Pope is sincere. He's just sincerely wrong on this issue. He knows that what makes a person a Christian is not his view on immigration or walls, but his faith in Christ for salvation. And I'd remind our viewers this morning that it was exactly 1 year ago this week that ISIS chopped off the heads of 21 Coptic Christians on that Libyan beach, and then they turned to the camera and said, "We're coming to Rome next."
Oh my
and
God,
I think
you're right.
the Pope would the Pope would understand the need for security. I think the Pope is confusing the role of the church, which is to show compassion, and the role of government, which is to uphold laws and secure the border. That is not unbiblical. That's a biblical responsibility of government.
Wow, thoughts?
Yeah, Pastor Jeffress, we have Donald Trump still in the lead in South Carolina. That latest poll shows the lead narrowing to 5, but other polls are still wider. South Carolina, known as a very conservative and very conservative Christian state. It almost sounds like Trump is being lauded here for being a defender of the faith, if you will, as opposed to being the guy who's showing compassion, as you said. Is that a fair assessment, and do you think that's going to help carry him among the conservative crowd here?
I really do. I think people have great respect for the Pope. I certainly do. But I think most Americans do not want to see the Pope inserting himself into the American election, and they certainly don't want to be taking national security advice from the Pope. And to me, it's amazing that South Carolina, 65% evangelical, and by the way, the most conservative brand of evangelicals, would be going for Trump. I mean, he's up almost 2-1 in South Carolina overall, and the latest Fox poll had him up 8 points, even among conservative evangelicals. I mean, this is truly a phenomenon.
But, Pastor, the Pope does have influence with Catholic voters in this country. Looking back to 2012, and they were split almost evenly between President Obama and Mitt Romney, about 50%, 48% Obama-Romney. So it might not matter in these southern states where the Catholics don't make up a large percentage of the voters, but it surely matters maybe in a general election when you look at these major states, like New Jersey, for example.
Well, if evangelicals are any clue to what Catholics may do, it was interesting. Bloomberg showed in South Carolina that when it comes to identifying with their values, voters said Trump was at the bottom of the list. And yet they believe he is best to protect people's security and to challenge the establishment. I would guess that Catholics around America are also concerned about American security and people flooding over the border who are drug dealers, criminals, and potentially ISIS terrorists. And I think that's one thing Catholics and Protestants have in common, and that's the desire to keep America safe.
By the way, I mean, have we heard the Pope react to what's going on to Christians across the world right now?
Well, I think the pontiff has been very outspoken about the need to protect Christians and the outrage against Christians being persecuted. So I'm not sure where the disconnect here is between what the Pope had to say and I think his very much desire to keep Americans safe.
Here's Jack Otter from Barron's. Jack.
Pastor, do you think that this might be an argument for maybe not, whether you build a wall between Mexico and the U.S. or not, maybe building a slightly higher wall between politics and religion?
Well, look, here's one way where I'm sympathetic with the Pope, and I said this last week on FBN. Look, I think people of faith ought to be involved in politics, and certainly pastors and priests and popes. You know, the word politics literally means to influence, and if it had not been for pastors and politics, there would have been no abolition of slavery, there would have been no civil rights movement, there would have been no American Revolution. Pastors were at the forefront of all of those efforts. So, yes, we're to try to influence the world that we're in. I don't think we ought to engage in partisan politics, and that is certainly, if we're not an American, calling out a presidential candidate by name and suggesting he's not a Christian. I think that's going too far.
All right, Pastor. Talk about separation of church and state, Jack. Thank you, Pastor Robert. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Maria.
We'll see you soon.